I think we started the new piece yesterday was probably from Itmar, Reb Chia. So the Gemara yesterday mentioned that who does the halacha follow with regard to the days that are prohibited um, before and after. And so the Gemara said that Reb Chia bar Asi said in the name of Rav that the halacha follows Reb Yosi. And Shmuel said the halacha follows Reb Meir. And Reb Meir was the more lenient view in the Mishnah. And Reb Meir's view was that whenever it says not to eulogize, so then you're prohibited, according to Reb Meir, you're prohibited the day before as well from eulogizing. Whenever it says don't fast, then there's no problem with the day before or the day after. That was Reb Meir's view. Reb Yosi was one notch more strict. And Reb Yosi's view was that when it says not to eulogize on a certain holiday, so the day before and the day after would be prohibited for eulogizing and obviously fasting. And when it says don't fast, say it's a holiday, you can't fast. So then Reb Yosi would say that the day before is prohibited. So we have Reb Chia bar Asi in the name of Rav saying that the halacha follows Reb Yosi, which would be more strict, and Shmuel said that the halacha follows Reb Meir, which is more lenient. The Gemara asks, what do you mean Shmuel really said this? Really, we find that Shmuel says that the halacha follows Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, who always permits the day before and the day after, because he says, if you look in Megillus Taanis, it uses the word behoin, that this day, these days specifically are prohibited in fasting or eulogizing. So Reb Shimon ben Gamliel says, you know what that means to tell us? That it's only that day is prohibited because it's a holiday, but the day before and the day after are permitted. So Shmuel says that the halacha follows Reb Shimon ben Gamliel. Now that contradicts if he says the halacha follows Reb Meir. So the Gemara answers that initially Shmuel was looking for the more lenient view because this is rabbinic law, and rabbinic law you can be more lenient, and therefore Shmuel initially only found the Reb Meir's lenient view, and then later he found out that there's a Reb Shimon ben Gamliel which is even more lenient. He said, well, then the halacha follows Reb Shimon ben Gamliel. Now, then the Gemara said that Bali in the name of Reb Chia bar Abba, in the name of Reb Yochanan, Bali, right? He said that the halacha follows Reb Yosi, and Reb Chia told Bali that when did Reb Yochanan say the halacha follows Reb Yosi? That's only when it's delay lehisana, not to fast. But when it says not to eulogize, then the halacha follows Reb Meir. Now, what does that mean? The halacha follows Reb Yosi when it says not to fast on this day. But when it says not to eulogize, then the halacha would follow Reb Meir. Basically, what that means is that we always prohibit the day before. Reb Yosi prohibits the day before when it says don't fast. So Reb Yosi says the day before is also prohibited. Reb Meir says when it says don't eulogize, Reb Meir says the day before is also prohibited. So according to this understanding of Reb Yochanan, basically we always prohibit the day before and we never prohibit the day after. That's basically what the Gemara is saying at the end of the page over here. Now we're going to start here. I'd like to start from Yud Ches Amud Aleph from 18a, the bottom two lines of the page. If you have the art scroll, let me tell you what we're starting from. 18a3, the last paragraph. So, Umi Amar Rabbi Yochanan Hachi. Did Rabbi Yochanan really say this? Did he say that we always prohibit the day before? Did Rabbi Yochanan really say that you prohibit the day before? We're going to find a source that Rabbi Yochanan does not prohibit the day before. In other words, we just said that Rabbi Yochanan holds you always prohibit the day before because we When it says not to fast, we follow Rabbi Yossi and prohibits the day before. And when it says not to eulogize, we follow Rabbi Meir. So Rabbi Yochanan seems to always hold this thing that you prohibit the day before. And the Gemara is going to ask, is that really so that we're going to prohibit the day before? We seem to have a proof that you are allowed to fast and to eulogize the day before a holiday. And what's his proof? He brings a Stam Mishnah, it's called. Me Amar Rabbi Yochanan, does Rabbi Yochanan really say this? Amar Rabbi Yochanan, didn't Rabbi Yochanan say halacha Stam Mishnah? Halacha follows a Stam Mishnah. Now, what is a Stam Mishnah? A Stam Mishnah means a Mishnah that was taught without any opinion arguing on it. Those Mishnahs are generally meant to teach us that that's the final halacha, because we generally follow a Stam Mishnah, and here Rabbi Yochanan clearly says that the halacha is like the Stam Mishnah, so Rabbi Yochanan paskins this way, that whenever you have a Stam Mishnah that doesn't have a dissenting view, we follow that Stam Mishnah, that Mishnah that has only a one view clear law, we follow that. So the Gemara says, what does it say in the Mishnah? Tanan, we learned in the Mishnah, Aval Pi Shamru Ma'akdimin, that even though that the law is that the rabbi said that the people who live in small villages, they are allowed to be makdim, and they do the Megillah early. And we learn it from Psukim that the law is that you can only go early and not late. Makdimen v'loy mi'acherin. We could do before the 14th and 15th, but we can't do after the 14th and 15th. So in the Gemara and Megillah and the Mishnah and Megillah, they all talks about all those dates that you're allowed to do early. Mutaren behesped v'tainis. The Mishnah says, but even though you do it early, and so you're to some extent you're celebrating the holiday early because you're reading the Megillah early. Nevertheless, the Mishnah says you are allowed in Hesped and Taanis. We just turned page 18, and we're on to 18b, from 18a to 18b. So we're now on 18b. And so the Mishnah there said that even though you're going to read the Megillah at a different time, nevertheless, you will be allowed to fast that day and to do a eulogy, because all you're doing Megillah early. But really, the holiday, to some extent, stays on its regular day. Now, the Gemara wants to know what this refers to. What are we really speaking about? So the Gemara initially says maybe we're talking about someone who's lives in a regular city and he wants to read it, the Megillah, or someone who lives in a walled city is going to read the Megillah early because he's not in a walled city to this day. He's for Purim, he's in a regular city. So the Gemara is going to go through that, or is it talking about that? We're dealing with people who live in small villages and they have to travel on Mondays and Thursdays into the big city, and that's when we allow them to hear the Megillah because they provide food for everyone. So we were lenient for them and let them do the Megillah when it's convenient. And so the Gemara is going to go through different options. What day was the Monday and Thursday before Purim? What day did it fall out on? And so the Gemara goes through all of these details. So let's look inside and see how the Gemara uses the process of elimination to figure out the meaning of the Mishnah. The Gemara says, Ilema, Emas. When is this talking about? The top line. Emas. When is this talking about? Ilema b'nei chamesar. If we're talking about a person who reads the Megillah normally on the 15th day of Adar, which means a person who lives in a walled city from the time of Joshua, or someone, or in the city of Shushan, basically they read the Megillah on the 15th day of Adar. So what happens if they find themselves in a non-walled city? So in such a case, they're going to read the Megillah on the 14th. So what the Mishnah would be, if that's the meaning of the Mishnah, that the Mishnah said, even though we tell you to do it early and not late, you are allowed to fast and to eulogize. If that's the meaning of the Mishnah, then the Gemara says that would be very surprising, because the 14th and the 15th are automatic days of holiday where you're not allowed to eulogize or fast. So the Mishnah couldn't be saying that. That would go against what everyone knows. And and what's written in Megillus Taanis also. It's clearly in Megillus Taanis that you're not allowed to do that. So the Gemara says, let's read it inside of Mishari. Would that be allowed for them to fast, to eulogize and fast on the 14th because they're reading the Megillah early because they are people who normally read it on the 15th and they're going to read it on the 14th. So we're going to let them fast and eulogize because their real day is the 15th. Is that permitted? Well, Ksiv and Megillus Taanis, it says clearly in this booklet of the called Megillus Taanis that Yom Rabbasav Yom Chaboy Yom Chamisha the day, the 14th day in Adar and the 15th day in Adar, Yoimi Puraya Inon, they're days of Purim. The Leila Mispad behind you're not allowed to eulogize on those days. So there's no one is allowed to eulogize on those days just because you live in a walled city normally and now you're here. Those days are off limits. So therefore, and Rava explains it that way. It wasn't necessary to write this about the Hesped and Taanis for only that no matter what city you're in, you're always going to be permitted, no matter what type of city you normally live in, you're always going to be prohibited on the other day that's not your holiday from eulogizing and fasting. So that is the meaning of what it says in Megillus Taanis, that you cannot eulogize or fast on the 14th or on the 15th. So that the meaning of the Stam Mishnah can't mean that. The Ella rather, they are Beisar v'Karlei b'Tleisar. We must be talking about people who are small villages and they are going to be allowed to read the Megillah when they go into the big city because the rabbis were lenient for them. They provided food for everyone. These are the farmers, and they are going to be allowed to read on the Monday and Thursday and make it easier for them, more convenient for them. So we're talking about the people who should be reading on the 14th, but they are now going to read on the 13th. Tleisar. That's this is the Tlei is 13. Trey Tleisar 13. Tresar is 12, right? So they're reading on the Tleisar on the 13th. Why are they reading on the 13th? Because the 14th fell on a Tuesday. They're going into the big city on Mondays and Thursdays. That's when they bring food to the big cities, the farmers. And so therefore, we're going to be lenient for them and let them read the Megillah when they go into the big city the day before on the 13th of Adar. The Gemara says 13th of Adar, we're gonna let them read it on the 13th of Adar, but they're allowed to fast and eulogize on that day. They're only gonna read the Megillah then, but eulogizing and fasting would be permissible. Gemara says, really? Yom Nikanarhu, the 13th is a holiday. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yom Nikanar, it's a day. The day is a special holiday, which we'll soon see what that is. It's the day of Nikanar, and it can't be that we're going to allow someone to do a eulogy and a fast on that day. The Ella b'nei ar beisar, Karle betresar. So the Gemara says, you know what? We must say it must be talking about a different case.
What detergent do you use to clean the clothes?
So we must be talking about b'nei ar beisar, Karle betresar. We're talking about 14 people who should be reading the Megillah on the 14th, but because of the leniency the rabbis gave them, they're going to be reading it on the 12th, Tresar. So why would they be reading it on the Tresar on the 12th? Because let's say it fell on a Wednesday, the 14th, and they want to read the Megillah when they go into the big city, which is on Monday. So that would be on the 12th. So it's called the Yom HaKnisa, the day that they enter and bring the farm. They go to they go to the big city on the 12th. So they're going to read the Megillah on the 12th. And the Mishnah is basically telling them that they would be allowed to eulogize and fast on that day, but they read the Megillah. In other words, we were lenient for them to read the Megillah. So the Gemara says, really, the 12th? Yom Tur Yonasu. That's the day of Tur Yonas. So the Gemara says, no, you know what? We have to come up with a new answer. And this is the final option. We don't have too many options. You have to understand the Megillah can't be read any day of the month. We have Yud Aleph, Yud Beis, Yud Gimel, Yud Dalet, Tezvav. It's only these 3 extra days that the Megillah could be read, Yud Aleph, Yud Beis, Yud Gimel. So now the Gemara says it's the last option. It must be talking about Chadesar. It's the 11th of Adar, and they're going to be reading the Megillah on the 11th of Adar. Why would it be the 11th of Adar? Because Yud Dalet, the 14th, fell on a Sunday. They're going to be reading the Megillah on Thursday when they go into the day that they go in to the big city, and that would be on the Thursday before. So if Yud Dalet, the 14th, is on Sunday, we're not going to push it off till the day after because that's not appropriate. So you could do it early. Makdim and v'lei ma'achrin, you do it early. So it's not the 14th is Sunday. You can't do it then because they're not going into the city. The 13th is Saturday. They're definitely not going into the city on Shabbos. And the 12th is Friday. They're not going to go into the city then because it's not a Monday or Thursday. And then the 11th is Thursday. That's when they will go into the city and they're going to hear the Megillah then. And the Mishnah, the Stam Mishnah, is basically telling them that you're going to go into the city on Thursday. We'll let you read the Megillah. But remember, it's not really a holiday. You're allowed to fast. You're allowed to eulogize. But you hear the Megillah, no problem. We're going to let you hear the Megillah that day. Now, what do we see from there? Ukatani, and it says, taught, mutter b'hesped v'tainis, that they're allowed, they read the Megillah that day on the 11th, but they're allowed to do a hesped v'tainis. They're allowed to eulogize and fast. Now, what's the problem with that? The problem with that is, we just said that Rabbi Yochanan holds that the day before a holiday, you cannot eulogize or fast, right? We prohibit the day before. But this Stam Mishnah is basically saying that they're going to be allowed to eulogize and fast. Now,
but it's not the actual holiday.
Right. But
you're pushing everything back just to
correct.
Help these people. So
okay.
Therefore, it's not problematic.
It's not problematic, except for the fact that we just said that on the 12th day of Adar, there is a holiday. And what holiday is the 12th of Adar? Yom Tur Yonos. And the 11th of Adar is called the day before Yom Tur Yonos. And if we hold that, like Rabbi Yossi or Rabbi Meir, if we hold like that Rabbi Yossi would be in this scenario, where the day of or Rabbi Meir, I guess, either one, we would basically, Rabbi Yochanan holds like both, and he prohibits the day before the holiday. This is a day before. This is a day before the holiday of Yom Tur Yonos. Now,
but can't we understand it that we're talking about major holidays like Purim, Pesach, Shavuot, and things like that?
No, it says any day.
And Yom Nicanor are minor holidays.
Minor holidays. Right. The only problem is the wording of Megillas Taanis is the wording is, or the wording of this rule is any day that you're not allowed to Leila Mispad behind, that's already a day before you have to prohibit. Any day that it says Leila Sana behind, the day before you have to. So it's based on whatever is prohibited that day, that we call it a holiday that the day before would be prohibited. So this is falls into this category. Let me get you the wording was Kol hakosov b'megillas Taanis delay lemispad. Anything that it says not to do a hesped, lefanav aser liacharov mutter. right? That was Reb Meir. So it uses this term, which basically it falls into this category that where the Mishnah is explaining the rules of whatever it says in Megillas Taanis. Is we have Reb Yosi. If it says Deloy Mispad, so Lefanav Aser Liachar of Mutter, that was Reb Meir, and Reb Yosi Yomer Lefanav Liachar of Aser, that they're both Aser. What about if it says Deloy Lehisana, not to fast on that day? So Reb Meir was Lefanav Liachar of Mutter, before and after is permissible. Reb Yosi Yomer Lefanav Aser Liachar of Mutter. Reb Yosi says that it's going to be prohibited the day before the day, and permitted the day after. So it's basically talking about these minor holidays, because it's only telling us holidays that it says not to fast and not to eulogize. It doesn't say Purim and Hanukkah and bigger holidays. Basically, is talking about these minor holidays. That's what Megillas Taanis is all about, and that's what our Mishnah clearly says. It brings this machlokes. So so the Gemara is very uncomfortable with this opinion of Rabbi Yochanan. Now, the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan, it seemed to be a little unclear what his real view was. Did he hold like Rabbi Yosi in everything, or did he hold like Rabbi Yosi in part, and Reb Meir in part? That which was what the Reb Chia wanted to explain. But either way, however you learn Rabbi Yosi, no matter how you learn him, the day before is always going to be usher. If he holds like Rabbi Yosi completely, then for sure the day before is usher. Sometimes even the day after a holiday is usher. If he holds like Rabbi Yosi in part and Reb Meir in part, basically what ends up is always the day before any of these minor holidays is always going to be prohibited. So this does not fit with the Mishnah in Megillah that's called a Stam Mishnah, where it says that the day before Yom Tiryanos is going to be permitted to fast and to eulogize. So we have a contradiction in Rabbi Yochanan. And the Gemara answers that, no, we learned it wrong. That's the Gemara's answer. And let's read it inside. The Gemara says, Loi, no, this is not so. This is not the meaning. You've interpreted it wrong. What we're talking about is B'nei Arba Aser, but the Karule B'Treisa. We're talking about that we're dealing with the B'nei Arba Aser. These are people who should be reading the Megillah on the 14th, but because they go into the big city on the 12th, they're bringing food. We permit them to read it. We permit them to read it on the 12th. This is the case where it's let's say Wednesday is the 14th, so Tuesday would be the 13th, and Monday would be the 12th. They're going to read it on the 12th. Udaka Amrit Yom Tiryanusu, and this that you said, well, the 12th is Yom Tiryanus. You can't say that they're permitted to fast and to eulogize. The Gemara says, no, it's not a problem. Yom Tiryanus Gufei Batule Batluhu. Yom Tiryanus itself, they abolished that holiday. Because Shmaya and Achia, his brother, were killed on that day. Because of that sad event, they're called the Haruge Lud. And Rashi says he doesn't know what the real story is, who they are, but and interestingly enough, Rashi adds, these are not the person. This is not connected to the person in Melachim, in the book of Kings, chapter 13, where it talks about someone who the lion mauled and killed, which is what we just learned yesterday about Edo. So Rashi says that was Edo the Navi. That's not this. Shmaya and Achia, that's not this. In other words, Rashi was thinking maybe you'll think Shmaya and Achia, maybe that's the sad story that happened over there in the book of Kings with someone who was killed by a lion. And it was a prophet, a special person, sad, he got tricked into something. So maybe you'll think, that it's
Rabbi.
No.
Rabbi.
Yes.
Excuse me. Rabbi Armand should be in the waiting room. Can you check and see?
Yeah, he's not.
He's not. Okay, sorry about that.
No problem.
All right.
So Rashi says he doesn't know what the story of Shmaya and Achia is, but in the side it mentions that Shmaya and Achia were called the Haruge Lud, and it brings down from Psachim and Baba Basra that there's a story about the Haruge Lud, which seems to be a very similar story to the story that we know of Lulyanis and Pappus. In other words, that the emperor's daughter was killed. They wanted to know who killed her, and they were going to blame the entire Jewish people. And these two brothers stood up and said, "We did it." And even though they didn't, and they were killed, and so on, and that's why it became a sad day for the because they were both killed. Now, so again, Rashi doesn't say this, but on the side they bring from the Aruch that maybe this is meaning. It seems like Rashi believes that the Haruge Lud are the Pappus and Lulyanos, because Rashi understands the story there. Like that's the story, but so I guess it's a machlokes what we're referring to here. But in any event, in other words, what was the story with this emperor's daughter? Who did it happen with? Was it Lulyanis and Pappus, or was it with this person by the name of Shmaya and Achia? Now, however it is, there's a reason why Turyanis was canceled, and because they canceled it, the 12th is not a holiday. Because it's not a holiday anymore, therefore, you would be allowed to eulogize and fast on that day. They would read the Megillah that day, but they would still be allowed to eulogize and fast because that's not the real Purim holiday, and it's not the day of Turyanis because Turyanis was abolished. So the Gemara says, what about the fact that it's the 13th of Adar is Nicanor, which will be the Tuesday, and they're on Monday reading the Megillah. They're going into the big city and they're reading the Megillah on Monday, which is the 12th. 13th is a holiday. So this is the day before a holiday. And according to Rabbi Yochanan's earlier opinion, it seems that they would not be allowed to fast or eulogize on that day because it's the day before Yom Nicanor. And why are we saying you're reading the Megillah, but you're allowed to fast and eulogize? No, Rabbi Yochanan says it's a day before. You wouldn't be allowed. So this seems to be a contradiction in Rabbi Yochanan's view. The Gemara answers, no, it's not a problem, because the Gemara says, Amar Rav Ashi says, Hashta iu gufei batluhu mishum yom nikanor. They themselves, that itself was abolished because of one second. Turyanos, they were Mavata. Typically, it's the day before Yom Nicanor. Hashta iu gufei badluhu. Let me read it again. Amar Rav Ashi says, Hashta now. Iu gufei batluhu. It itself was abolished as a holiday. Mishum Yom Nicanor Nekom Nigzar, because of the day of before Yom Nicanor, we're going to go and stand up and decree a holiday. This is a sad day. We abolished the holiday itself. Of course, we're going to abolish the fact that it's the day before. So therefore, the Gemara has no problem fasting and eulogizing on the 12th day of Adar, even though the 12th day of Adar used to be Yom Turyanos, and it's the day before Yom Nicanor. It's no problem because this is the day that Shmaya and Achia were killed, and it became, the holidays were abolished. And therefore, you're allowed to fast, you're allowed to eulogize on this day, even though it used to be a holiday, and even though you're reading the Megillah, but some people are reading the Megillah, but it's not the real holiday of Purim, and therefore, a person would be allowed to eulogize a fast. And this doesn't contradict Rabbi Yochanan's view that he holds like Rabbi Yossi, and ultimately, a day before a holiday should be as well prohibited in fasting and eulogizing. The day before a holiday of eulogy that they were not allowed to eulogize, the day before would be also prohibited. And so it's not a contradiction. He also holds like the Stam Mishnah And the Stam Mishnah is talking about this type of case. This case where like it fell on the 14th fell on a Wednesday, and they're going to read the Megillah on the Monday, and they'll be allowed to fast that day because they were Mavatel Yom Turyanos, and they were of course Mavatel the day before Yom Nikanor. So the Gemara now tells us what is this Yom Nikanor, my Nikanor, or my Turyanos? What are these two holidays? The Tanya, because we learned in a Brisa, Nikanor is Echon Me'aparche Yavanim. Nikanor was one of the governors, Greek governors. He was every day he would wave his hand over Judah and Yerushalayim, and he would say, when will it fall in my hand, and I will trample on it. When the kingdom of the Chashmonaim was successful, they were overpowered. And they won them over. They cut off the thumb of his hand and the big toe of his foot. They tied them on the gates of Yerushalayim. And they said, this mouth that spoke with such arrogance, and his hands that would wave over Yerushalayim. We will do against him revenge. My Turyanos. What is the Turyanos holiday? Amru, they said, because we get Turyanos Lagos Yanos Papus Achiv, Beludgia, where they wanted to kill Papus and Yanos and Papus in Ludgia. I'm sorry. Amar Lahem, he said to them, if you are from the same nation as Hanani, Mishael, and Azariah, who were thrown into the furnace and they came out alive without a scratch. So miyadi, let your God come and save you from my hand. The same way he saved Hanani, Mishael, Azariah. And as I explained yesterday, what it seems like is he knew very well that these people were innocent, and he felt a little, guilty or wrong killing them because he knew they aren't the ones who did it. But at the same time, he wasn't backing off. He found some rationalizing avenue that he could rationalize. And the way he rationalized was that he said, I can kill you because, if you really didn't do it, Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah, they were saved. So you'll also be saved. Yes, Mordechai.
Is Turyanos the same as Turnus Rufus, or are they two different people?
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't think of connecting the two. Yeah, I don't know that they're the same. Do you have any source for that, or? Yeah, I guess they're different people, but it is a similar name. So So the Gemara says that that Hanani, Mishael, and Azariah, that they said that your God will save you. Kiderach shitzos Hanani, Mishael, Azariah. Miyad Nebuchadnezzar, from the hands of Nebuchadnezzar, Hashem saved them, so we'll save you as well. Amrullah, they said to this Turyanos, they said to him, Hanani, Mishael, Azariah, tzadikim gemurim hayu. Hanani, Mishael, and Azariah. Hanani, Mishael, and Azariah are tzadikim gemurim. They are righteous people, and they were very holy, and therefore they merited to have a miracle happen to them. They merited to have a miracle happen. Nebuchadnezzar, even though he was a wicked king, evil and cruel, but at the same time, he was a melech hagon. He was a proper king that deserved to have a miracle happen through him because he did praise Hashem when he saw that Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah were saved. And so therefore, we call him a melech hagon. He's called a proper king. And so the two brothers, Papus and Lilyanos are basically saying that that we are not going to merit to have such a miracle happen to us, and so if you kill us, the blood will be on your shoulders. Now, I do want to mention the Maharsha has another explanation here, and that is that why is Nebuchadnezzar called a Melech Hogun Haya? Because this is an interesting point. He says, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah refused to bow down. The king made a rule. He wanted everyone to bow down to him and to his idol, and they didn't. And so they, according to Nebuchadnezzar's rule, they had transgressed it. And therefore, they were guilty of the death penalty according to his rules. Now, of course, in Hashem's dictionary, they were not guilty of the death penalty, and Hashem made a miracle for them. But Nebuchadnezzar, in a certain sense, made a rule, and they didn't follow it. So there was some level of legitimacy for Nebuchadnezzar to try to want to kill them because they transgressed his decree. Now, here, you're killing us because why? Because you are looking for someone to blame the murder of the emperor's daughter on, so you're killing us. Well, it's wrong. This is you're not an honest, this is not anywhere near honest, because we didn't do it. We're just sticking up for the community. But so therefore, they basically were saying that this is not a scenario where the king is right in his judgment. So that when they say Melech Hogun, when they're saying Nebuchadnezzar was a Melech Hogun Haya, they mean he was acting properly in the fact that we didn't listen to his rule, and therefore he had a claim against Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. So again, Nebuchadnezzar was wicked and the worst evil of evil, but at the same time, the Gemara calls him Melech Hogun either because he praised Hashem at some point when they were saved, or because he was just following his edict. Yes, Ben.
I want to say it reminds me of the story of Haman and Mordechai, and then Achashverosh saved him.
So
the same story here with the Greeks.
So here we have they're talking to Turianus, and they're telling him that Nebuchadnezzar was fit that a miracle will happen through him. Russia head you to, and now they tell Turianus, but you, evil one, you're not deserving. You're like a hedya, you're a commoner. And you don't deserve that a miracle will happen through you. V'anu and us, nischayavnu kloyalamakum, we deserve death to Hashem because we aren't as righteous. Ve'em ein ata hargenu, and even if you don't kill us, harbe hargem yesh lamakum, Hashem has many ways of killing. V'harbe duvim, v'arayas, many bears and lions. Yesh lamakum by lama Hashem has in His world. Shepaygan bano v'hargen isana, that they will attack us and kill us. Ella, but Hashem only put us in your hand. Ella sha'asid li para midaminu miyadcha, because Hashem is going to extract our blood from your hand. He's going to ultimately punish you for it, and that's all Hashem is doing here. Is basically, this is a means. This is a means for Hashem to punish you for doing this terrible murder. So, Aval Pikein Hargan Miyad, nevertheless, this Lilyanos killed them right away. And Amru, and they said that Loizazu Misham, in other words, it was said that they didn't move from there. than that place. No one moved from that place ad shabo diyufle meroime until the pair of diu is like a duo. Diu play. The pair of officers came from Rome, upatzu as moiche b'gzirin, and they split open his head with these with logs of wood and or sticks of wood. So basically, well, this Turianus was punished right away, and so what is interesting, and this is something that's bothering me, and I do have to look it up, but the question that bothers me is as follows. So we made a holiday because of Turianus. What was the holiday? The holiday is that the holiday is that the Yidden were saved, even though unfortunately Pappus and Lulyanus, they were killed, but at least the Yidden were saved. So we made a holiday out of this day, Turianus, and Turianus was the 12th of Turianus was the 12th of Adar, and they made a holiday out of it, and so Lulyanus Pappus passed away, but we made a holiday because the Jewish people were saved. Now the question is, why was the holiday abolished? The holiday was abolished because two people were killed, Shmaya and his brother Achia. Shmaya and Achia. Why were they killed? They were killed because they saved also a Jewish community. They were the people of Lud. They were called the Haruge Lud. And if that's so, if that's the story about these about them, so why don't we instead make a holiday out of it? Because the rest of the Jewish people were saved. Instead, we're making it like a sad day. We're abolishing this holiday because we're abolishing the holiday because these two brothers were killed. But we had another story where two brothers were killed, but it saved the whole Jewish people, made a holiday. So why when these two brothers are killed, we're making a sad day out of it, and we're not making a holiday out of it? Again, I'm following that understanding that that the daughter of the emperor was killed. They wanted to kill all the Jews and to save the Jewish people. These people got the Shemaiah and Achia. They whatchamacallit, they claimed that they did it and saved the Jewish people. So seemingly, if that's the story, so then we have to decide, when two people get up and get killed and save entire Jewish people, is that a reason to make a holiday or to abolish a holiday? So that's the question that I'm
struggling with.
Okay. Anyway, in any event, I have to look up in the commentary, see if they discuss it. The only thought I have is maybe the first time around, maybe it's a holiday. The second time around, maybe they say, well, in truth, I mean, we can't make a holiday out of it. It's very sad. This is the two people around, or it's just a contradiction in stories that, in other words, maybe the stories we don't have right. In other words, the Rashi doesn't tell us what the story of Shmaya and Achia is. So on Rashi, it's not a question. Because Rashi says, Shmaya and Achia, I don't know what the story is. There's some story how so maybe they didn't save the Jewish people. Maybe they just, maybe they were just killed, and it became a sad day because they were killed. But according to the Aruch, that's the way he's understanding it, that this was a it basically saved the entire Jewish people, but still they were killed. They were such holy people. They got killed. It's a sad day. See, the Gemara doesn't clearly tell us. If you look at the Gemara, I guess you have to learn it that way. The Gemara, if you look at the story, the way the Gemara has it, the Gemara's story is, what is Nicanor? So it says that, I'm sorry, not Nicanor. What is Tyryanus? Tyryanus wanted to kill Elianus and Pappus, and he said, "You'll be killed if you don't." They said, "No, we're not going to get. You'll be saved." And they said, "No, we're not going to get saved." And the Gemara concludes that that they got killed, and the whatchamacallit got killed. The guy, this Tyryanus himself, got killed.
It's a tough one because it's a tough one because they lied if they didn't do it.
But they did a mitzvah because they saved many lives by lying, and we know that even to save one life, you're allowed to transgress even any biblical law to save a life.
If the emperor was blaming the Jewish people for killing his daughter, then he was right because 2 Jews stood up and said they did it.
Wait, what does that mean? He was right. He was right in what sense?
In the sense that he was.
He knew they didn't do it. He knew they didn't do it. But he was blaming them. He was blaming them. So he was a murderer.
Yeah, I get it. But at the same time, if he's blaming the Jewish people for it, then 2 Jews stand up and say they did it in order to save the rest. Then it makes him look good in front of everybody else, although he knows the truth is that they didn't do it.
Right. So, okay, well said. Point well taken. So the what I'm thinking is that the Gemara doesn't tell us clearly what the holiday is of Tyryanus, and it doesn't say clearly that the Yidden were saved because of them. Again, that's the way we are explaining it, because that's how Rashi understood this story. What really happened? It doesn't say. All it says is they got killed and Tyryanus himself was killed. And so I guess it made a great Kiddush Hashem that Tyryanus was killed right away, like Hashem punished the wicked immediately. So possibly you could say that according to the Aruch, they didn't really the reason for the holiday was because the whatchamacallit got killed, was because the evil guy at least died. Maybe that's why they made a holiday. This Tyryanus, this wicked Tyryanus guy, was killed. And the other story, where Shmaya and Achia, the guy who killed them didn't get killed. They saved the Jewish people, but that guy didn't get killed. And so they didn't make a holiday. It's very sad. Two Jews died. Here, at least the enemy, they don't have this enemy anymore killing them. So in other words, the question would be, which holiday, is it a reason to celebrate or to abolish a holiday? When Jewish people get up and save, in other words, this seems to be the argument here between the Aruch and Rashi. Rashi holds that when 2 Jewish people get up and they get killed, but they save the entire Jewish people, it's a reason to make a holiday because the Jewish people were saved. That's a reason. According to the Aruch, no. You actually abolish a holiday because 2 Jews died. You abolish a holiday, 2 Jews died. That's what it seems like the Aruch is understanding. These Jews were on the highest levels. Can you imagine giving one's life up to save a Jewish community? Giving your life to save Jewish people, that's the highest level. So the Aruch says that's a reason, that we lost 2 of the highest level Jews. That's a reason to abolish a holiday. And the story of Lulius and Papas, why don't we make a holiday? Or why in this case do we make a holiday? Why would you make a holiday with Lulianus and Papas according to the wording of the Gemara? So the Lulianus and Papas, this story in the Gemara doesn't say that the Jewish people were saved. It just says they were killed, and the guy Turianus was killed also right afterwards. So here, that's a reason to make a holiday, maybe because the enemy was killed. There, in the other story, where the Jewish people died and no one, the enemy wasn't killed, so we're sad. Here, the enemy was killed, so that's why we're happy. So again, it could be that there's different ways of what to emphasize, when to make a holiday and when not. Could be that's the machlekes here. Yes.
In the Steinsaltz Gemara, it says that Lulianus and Papas were probably not executed at the time, which is why the date was established as a commemorative day.
So Janus was the only one that was killed.
That doesn't seem to fit so well. Lulianus and Papas, they weren't executed right away. So why does it say that that Turianus was killed right there? In other words, wasn't Turianus was killed right away? He was killed before he executed them. He had to execute them before he died.
Should I read the whole paragraph? It's a small paragraph.
Yeah, that sounds a little surprising. It doesn't seem to fit.
Yeah, it says the external sources do not fully clarify the events referred to here. Apparently, this episode occurred in the context of the great revolts of the Jews against the Romans towards the end of the reign of the Roman Emperor Turianus. It's likely that the man who ordered the deaths of Lulianus and Papas was a captain in Turianus's army, who was later defeated in battle and killed. Lulianus and Papas were probably not executed at the time, which is why the date was established as a commemorative day.
Well, our Gemara says Hargan miyad. He killed him right away. I don't know if you could. I don't know how he's learning. That sounds a little surprising. It doesn't seem to fit with the wording of the Gemara. Hargan miyad, and then it says Leizozu misham. No one moved until they killed this Turianus. Yeah. I don't know how to translate that. Anyway, I think it's interesting to see the two views of the way I was explaining. I have to see if any of the commentaries mention that, my own little thoughts. So I have to see if it's acceptable. But that's just a little thought that came to my mind about these two versions of the stories, Shmaya and Achia, and the story of Lulianus and Papas. Okay, now let's finish off the parak. So the Gemara says, Ein Goizrin, we have 5 lines left to the chapter 2. Ein Goizrin Taanis ala tzibur. We do not decree a fast day on the community. B'tchila b'chamishi, starting on a Thursday, and etc. etc. And the Mishnah continued saying some other laws. And Ein Goizrin Taanis b'Rosh Chodashim cholu. You also don't make a decree for a fast day. If it's a holiday, so Rosh Chodesh and Chanukah and Purim and so on, we don't establish fast days on these holidays. If you already started a series of fasts, and it falls then afterwards on one of the holidays, then we let it go and we fast. And the Mishnah said, even if you let it go, we don't finish the fast. We'll start the fast, but before it gets dark, we eat. Now, the Gemara says, V'kama. So what does it mean that if we started a series of fasts, then we actually let the continuation of the fast fall on holidays? How much is a beginning that you started already? If you started 5 fasts, 2 fasts, 1 fast, what is considered a beginning that you started a series? What does it mean to start the series of fasts? That then if a later fast fall on a holiday, what's the beginning of a series? How much do you have to start already? V'kama havya haschala Rav Acha Amar Shalish. Rav Acha says 3. You have 3 Monday, Thursday, Monday, and then the next Thursday is a Chanukah. You're allowed to fast because you did 3. You did a Monday, Thursday, Monday. Then we'll continue the series, even though it falls on a holiday. Rav Asi Amar Achas. Rav Asi says even if it's just one fast, you did one fast, and then the next fast is already a holiday. So that we would not abolish the fast. We would still keep on fasting and continue the series of fasts. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav Zudiv Reb Meir She'amar Mishum Rabban Gamliel. These are the words of Reb Meir. Reb Yehuda in the name of Rav says these are the words of Reb Meir who said in the name of Rabban Gamliel. Aval Chachamim Aimrim, but the rabbis say Mesana Umashli. So what is Reb Yehuda in the name of Rav talking about? He's talking about the continuation of the Mishnah. The Mishnah says that even if you fast on Hanukkah and on other holidays, Rosh Chodesh, even if you fast on these days, nevertheless, you don't finish the fast. That's what the Mishnah said. Rabbi Gamliel agrees that you don't finish the fast. This is the way Reb Meir explained Rabbi Gamliel's view. If you'll fast, okay, no problem. We're not gonna cancel your fast. You could continue fasting because you already started a series. But even if you continue fasting, the Mishnah said that you wouldn't finish it completely. You wouldn't finish the whole fast day. You would eat something before dark. Now, the Gemara now tells us that that's one view, but the rabbis have a different view. The rabbis say you fast and you finish it, even on Hanukkah, even on a holiday or Rosh Chodesh or whatever it is. You're masana umashlim. Now, I should mention, Taanis over here says that we're specifically talking about Rosh Chodesh because of Hanukkah and Purim, you're not allowed to fast. It calls it a Yom Mishta, a Simcha. So the way Taanis understands this is we're specifically talking about Rosh Chodesh type of holiday, not Hanukkah and Purim. So you're Masana Umashlim, even though one of the fast days falls on Rosh Chodesh, you finish. Darash Mar Zutra, Mishmei Rav Huna, Halacha, Masana Umashlim. So Rav Mar Zutra, in the name of Rav Huna, says that the halacha is that you're Masana Umashlim, you do fast, and you complete the fast. Hadran Allah Seder Taanis Ketzad. We have just finished the chapter called Seder Taanis Ketzad, and may it return to us. Hadran, may it return to us, and we shouldn't forget it. I will just mention that the Rambam says, "Ein Geizrin Taanis Betchila B'Rosh Chodashim." You don't start a series of fasts on Rosh Chodesh, Chanukah, Purim. If they started fasting even one day, and one of these holidays, it fell on one of these holidays, they do finish the day with fast, as a fast. So it seems that the Rambam argues on Tosfos that you would actually fast even on other holidays, not just for Rosh Chodesh, because the Rambam mentions Chanukah, Purim, Chol HaMoed. If the community has begun to fast because of a distressing situation for even a single day, and the schedule of fast requires that a fast be held on one of the days above mentioned, so we should fast, and indeed fast the entire day. So it seems like the Rambam argues with this Tosfos. Okay, we're going to conclude here. Have a wonderful day. Sei gesund to everyone.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.